What's crackin' like a Toxic Room? My name is Toxiquid and happy Pokemon Day! As hopefully most of you know, I'm an avid Pokemon fan and I grew up on this series, starting with Diamond and Pearl, then gradually making my way up and down throughout it. And being a Pokemon fan through and through and being of European descent, you can't imagine how excited I was when Pokemon Sword and Shield got announced a year ago today. And being based in the Galar Region, one of the most unique regions to date, I wanted to take a stab at reviewing the latest games, so without further ado, let's actually just jump right into it. Be warned, there are spoilers ahead. This is 4 months old. Shut up. From a glance, Pokemon Sword and Shield just looks like your conventional Pokemon game with a British coat of paint, but when you look a bit deeper, it is a more complex and robust game, filled with additions alongside some controversial subtractions that make this game cohesive and unique. It lovingly combines the old and the new, with some more new on the way thanks to the Sword and Shield expansion pack, which looks absolutely amazing. But this review will be focusing on the base game, partially because we have no access to them as of the time of this video being released. Galar is an absolutely beautiful region to explore, with memorable characters, boppin' beats, and really unique Pokemon with some of the best designs in recent generations, like Cursula, Snom, Centiskorch, Toxtricity, and Orbeetle, just to name a few. And with a more streamlined story about uncovering the truth behind the Galarian legends with your gal pal Sonia, this makes for a somewhat fresh take on a story that hasn't been done before, yet one that feels also very familiar. The reintroduction of regional forms is also a big highlight, this time not being exclusively Cantonian Pokemon and stretching the reach all the way out to even Unova with an Ice-type Darumaka, a Ground Ghost Yamask, and even just a Galarian Slowpoke that has 2 different forms depending on the expansion pack that you get. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. In this really in-depth review of the whole game, I'm going to be going over topics like the wild area, mechanics, how everything is on a technical level, game feel, designs, story, etc. All these will be broken down to their own individual sections, and there's a lot to cover in each of them. So let's just get started with the technical aspects of the game. On a technical level, Pokemon Sword and Shield's graphics are all over the place. The resolution is fine, running at a crisp 1080p in dock mode, 720p in handheld, and is locked at 30 frames per second, for the most part. The problems really start when the player connects to the online service, specifically in the game's wild area. At that point, it basically runs like a PowerPoint presentation, but outside the wild area, it's pretty nice. Pokemon battles, the Pokemon camp, the routes, basically anywhere outside of it moves at a really good rate, aside from one cutscene here or there. On my repeated playthroughs, they seem to be consistent across all of them, the chief among them being Leon's introduction cutscene at Wedger's Station, which has a very noticeable frame drop that is really jarring to look at. So what does that leave us with? A mostly good frame rate with some hiccups. Solid overall, thank God Game Freak is potentially able to patch it up, but most likely this is what we're gonna get, and you know what? I'm okay with that. And since we were just talking about how the wild area is sometimes straight up bum, let's actually talk about it. It has the most defining feature of the Galar region, as it has the widest variety of Pokemon in the region by far, with over 200 species of Pokemon being found there. It clearly is the biggest and most expansive area in any Pokemon game to date. And they aren't just clustered in one small area. No. They are spread out in different sectors across practically half of the entire region, in most places being very stylistically distinct from each other, like the Watchtower ruins with the giant broken down structure, or the withered trees in the distinctly desert-like area of the Dusty Bowl, or even the giant Dragon's Gate sectioning off the city of Hammerlock in the Hammerlock Hills. Sure, there are some duds like the Bridgefield or the Dappled Grove and the east and west parts of Lake Miloke and Lake Axwell, but other than that, each area is pretty neat. But the fact that parts of the game that are sectioned off because of the water bite that you get in the last third of the game is kinda dumb in my opinion, as early in the game I kept seeing Pokemon in the water, like Gyarados and Frillish, Mantine and Lapras, and I couldn't even get to them. If I wanted a Gyarados, I actually had to work to get one. Sectioning off entire areas to travel seems kinda dumb, because even though you can't catch any Pokemon higher than a certain level throughout the game, you could still travel to those areas. Hell, that's what I did in my first run. I went over to the Motorsoak Bridge after getting my second badge and found a weird purple baby which turned out to be a Toxel. I couldn't catch it because it was too high level wise, but when I came back after beating the Motosoak gym, I raced over there to find no Toxels. A sad story to be sure, but the thing was I could actually go there and see and battle the new Pokemon instead of just admiring them from afar, having no way to get to them. It was the same thing on Route 2, where next to the lab I found an Arrokuda in the water with no way to get to it. I had a fishing rod, but after 30 attempts, I just gave up, so it's not just a wild area thing. But getting back on track, aside from the diverse biomes and ecosystems, it also boasts a dynamic weather system that differs from sector to sector, day to day, so the Dusty Bowl could be snowing, and right above that it could be harshly sunny, throwing out different Pokemon like Snover and Baltoy. But the biggest thing you can do in the wild area is undoubtedly the introduction of max raid battles. As just mentioned, the wild area's magnum opus is the max raid battles, and to find them, there are 100 places around the wild area where these big potholes show up that allow you to partake in the ancient art of fighting an unfair battle versus a giant fucking Pokemon. And with the help of the trusty allies, the Solrock guy, the Wobbuffet lady, and the potential one friend, you can conquer anything. Except their goddamn G-Max Thunderscourge. Ahem. Getting back on track, the max raid battles are a novel concept, and especially for a turn-based game like Pokemon, you don't have to worry about frame-perfect attacks, you just gotta wait until everybody picks their action, in which case afterwards, everybody goes, the Dynamax Pokemon resets everyone's stats, and repeat. These battles are usually more interesting, and take a good amount of communication and planning to take down a stronger foe, and what I like about it is that everything scales to some extent. At the start, the dens that you can face will only carry 1 to 2 star raids. After the first 3 gyms are beaten, 3-star raids will show up, and near the end, form 5-star raids. This should go without saying, but the more stars that show up, the tougher the enemy. And the more stars that show up, the more likely it is for you to need a friend or 3 to take down that chunky chap. I really like the wild area, and the things that brings to the table is incredible, and with the expansion packs areas being essentially another one of these is pretty friggin' neat. Aside from the technical hiccups, the wild area is a stellar place to explore while training your Pokemon, having fun with friends online, and will quite honestly be the most visited place you will go, especially after beating the main game. And I did neglect to mention the overworld encounters, but we'll get to that in the next section. The wild area is only a part of the whole Galar region, and while it's the most expansive and free place in the game,
but there's still a whole new region to explore, so let's go!
The whole region is pretty fucking diverse in terms of towns, cities, and set pieces. You will literally go from quaintest patch of Scotland and Wedgehurst to boom, Gears. And it only gets crazier from there, from the absolutely gorgeous forest setting of the Glenwood Tangle and Balanlea, to the bustling streets of Wyndon, to that one alley where Batman's parents got shot.
Hey kid, you want some candy?
Nah, thanks my dude, I'm just looking for me chap money.
Oh, you mean this little lady?
Yeah. So amidst the varied locales, you got routes, caves, mines, forests, etc. And while some of them aren't as unique as some others, there are definitely some standouts, like the Galar Mines, Route 9 with the introduction of the water bike and having a playground for you to explore with all that, and again with the aforementioned Glenwood Tangle place. And keep in mind that these are all routes. I can't even remember that many routes from other games in as much detail as I do here, partially because of them being the most recent games I have played, but also the fact that only a few routes in each area are somewhat unique, like Cliff Mountain in Black and White, Route 217 in Diamond and Pearl, etc, etc. But these routes are very diverse, for the most part. Sure, there are some generic routes, especially with those first 3 routes being generic grassy fields with some ledges and such, and sure, there are significantly less routes in between cities, but that's really because the wild area are filling in those gaps. That way, they can streamline the process of going into each area. But this is where I gotta gripe about the region again. The region fits the story, and since the story is so streamlined, it has to accommodate for that, so the region is basically a P, a circle, a sideways flag, and a lowercase b. This to me is the biggest letdown, because looking at this map here, all of this area is unexplorable. I wish there could have been something up there in the corners, or on the left side of the wild area, or even that oil refinery outside of Route 3 that could make for an interesting gym location. Cough, cough, Claire sucks, cough, cough. Or even those mountains near Sirchester. That it certainly beats having 2 caves at the very start to supply us with our cave-dwelling Pokemon fill. We could have had more Pokemon, like Cryogonal, Beartic, Geodude, hell, maybe even a Galarian Skiddo or Gogoat. Again, this is the biggest letdown, but the stuff that we did get is pretty rad, so I guess I'm content with this content. But going back to the towns, I love every single one of them. Each one of them is impeccably detailed, from Motorstoke's steampunk-inspired Manchester to Hammerlock's medieval Birmingham-inspired set piece, complete with a giant building that doubles as a final gym and a power plant, to even stuff like Sir Chester's frosty bath interpretation, complete with the Roman baths, and even the bustling city of Windon with so many billboards and a giant statue complete with birds. But this is where I gotta be negative again, because the towns are the least interesting places to explore in the game. Not look around admiring the scenery, no, explore. In the earlier games like in Pokemon Emerald, Platinum, and even Black and White, I wanted to explore every part of each town, looking for something interesting around every corner, talking to every NPC along the way. But in this game, I just want to continue to the next objective aside from the first 3 towns. I didn't feel as incentivized to go to each house, to read each fun dialogue, or even to interact with new people who may just have 1 or 2 lines. I never felt compelled to do so after the first introduction ceremony, and I believe that the routes with their more varied terrains and elevations alongside overworld encounters gives everything much more life, and literally makes mini bosses in the wild area as opposed to the big bad bosses in the max raid battles. And holy crap, I haven't realized how lifeless the overworlds are without the Pokemon, because now that we have them, I can't help but feel that prior gens are more lifeless in their overworlds because none of the Pokemon are visible while traversing, aside from follower Pokemon only available in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, as well as overworld encounters in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Every place looks solid, having amazing locales, memorable locations, but ultimately has areas that seem wasted, like a potential poison type gym, icy mountains, which thankfully will be in the Crown Tundra, or an extension of Windon, or even another city entirely. Overall, this region is the best one visually, but a Pokemon's world is only as good as a Pokemon's story. The story of Sword and Shield is one that is surprisingly restrained and intimate considering how big the scope is of the region, as it only really focuses on you, Hop, Sonia, with Leon, Bede, Marnie, and Rose being secondary characters. Sure, each character has their own story beats, but a lot of those aren't influenced by the overall story, but rather they complement it. But going back to the story, this is easily the simplest story in all of Pokemon, as everything revolves around the Gym Challenge, which is basically the same song and dances in every other Pokemon game except for Alola, but in this game it takes center stage.
No, this isn't a joke. Everything stems from the challenge. Here's how it works.
You start out in the tiny town of Postwick, but wait! You don't actually start there! The game starts with Discount YouTube showing a presentation of this old fucker named Rose. He gives the usual spiel of, welcome to the wonderful world of Pokemon. I'm not the professor, but hey, look at my fun elephant and these dumb birds. Ooh, here's the champion! And then bam, look, it's Leon, the champion. He fights this one dude with a living inhaler, but instead of having a fair fight, Leon's Charizard pulls a Yoshi's Island and grows big. The video cuts out after that. Okay, now you start in the tiny town of Postwick with your mom and buddy old pal Hop. He tells you that Leon, his brother, is in the next town over, Wedgehurst. And getting to meet the best trainer in the region after waking up and watching the news is a pretty big deal. So you zip on out of the house to find Hop watching a poor Wooloo get brain damage by ramming its head into a wooden fence. You ignore that and zip on over to Wedgehurst, see the laggiest cutscene of Leon saying hello to a crowd and doing a JoJo pose, then saying hi to Hop after pointing out that he's grown 1 1/4 inch, who even cares? But after that whole interaction, we go back to Hop's house and Leon thrusts onto you a choice between a funny music monkey, the Trix mascot, or baby T-Pain. Smash cut. That goddamn Wooloo busted his head through a fence and stumbled into the slumbering weld. This place is basically the Lost Woods in style, but Route 1 in substance. You scavenge around, and afterwards, you get lost. And, oh no, a rabid dog is stuck up behind you. Ah! Wait a tick. Is that just me? Or does that kind of look like the thing on the box? Well shit, might as well catch. Well shit, might as well kill it. Damn. Well, Leon found the dumb sheep, so now we actually get going. You go back to Wedgehurst, get introduced to Sonia the waifu babe, and head out into Route 2 to find Professor Magnolia. Surprise, another rival battle! Then some plot meteors fly down from space to grace us with his presence. And by reverse engineering the rock, Magnolia makes magic sweatbands that allow us to do what Leon did and do a Yoshi's Island to make our funny monkeys grow. Pause. Holy shit, that took a while. And that sounds like a lot of stuff they have to go through, huh? But what if I told you that was only the tutorial? Yeah. Don't worry, everything gets much faster from here, so let's go! After getting back to Wedgehurst, you get on a train to go to Motorstoke, but because of some dumbass sheep, you only get to the wild area, and you already know my thoughts on that. So after exploring a potentially better game, you zoop on over to Motorstoke and attend a ceremony, and, side tangent, look at this. When you first get the Motostoke, you have zero idea who the gym leaders are, but when you take a look at these little banners on the stadium, 4 on each side, they literally clue you into the types that each gym leader is going to be, which I think is freaking amazing. I mean, you could also do this in the YCOM, but I think this is symbolically cooler. So, if you are astute enough, you can figure out that you're going to have to fight a dark, fairy, dragon, grass, fire, water, or either fighting in rock or ice and ghost type gyms. Alright, side tangent over. So after you choose your jersey number, another neat mechanic, you run in with Team Yell, a team so loud they blew out the sound systems, which explains why there isn't any voice acting. You also get introduced to Marnie, who literally does nothing in the entire game besides getting you into Batman's alley. Back to the stadium, you get to see all the gym leaders except for one, getting a really neat look at all these guys and girls. After that, the game actually gets into gear. After all that nonsense, you actually get to do the gym challenge going from route to route, gym leader to gym leader in a very linear order. It's pleasant, with some really cool shit here and there, like in Galar Mines 1 where you get to meet Bede formally, and in Hulbury you get acquainted with Rose, you know the one guy from YouTube? That guy. He is alongside tall lady Oleana, his secretary who's most likely in love with him. I don't know, I'm very dense. But other than some minor annoyances from Team Yell here and there, you getting a bike, doing this and doing that, after your 7th gym badge you realize, all I've been doing is going from town to town with no clear reason. Then bam, it slaps you in the face with Pokemon Dynamaxing out of nowhere, with people going nuts until Leon steps in and saves the day. This is a change that I personally like because people before were complaining about how, you are a 10-year-old, you shouldn't have to be saving the fucking world from crime bosses, you bum. And I do think that the adults doing their jobs and keeping the region safe is a narrative blessing, but I do think that it does harm the gameplay because it just keeps telling you to go on with the gym challenge. So you do that. You beat the Inhaler Man and go onwards to the Pokemon League. And this is the best fucking part of the game, or at least it should when you experience it. But I don't know about you guys, but coming here just felt a little hollow. I felt like there should have been more to this, because there had been no cataclysmic events like in X and Y, no wormholes appearing like in Sun and Moon, not even a giant sky snake appearing to calm down a fire lizard and aquatic Shrek. But because there was nowhere else to go, I pressed on, getting into Winden, going to the stadium, and just taking everything in. In the league, there are 3 parts to it. The semifinals where you fight Marnie and Hop with their best teams. I love this part and I will get back to this in the next section, but this is a perfect landmark in Hop's growth as a character. After that, you move to the finals, but wait, Leon's gone. Yeah, after you beat Hop, Leon was supposed to take you out to dinner in a strange parallel to Rose. But you can't find him. And this is the moment where I started to stop feeling empty about coming to Winden like this, because this is all where all the fun stuff happens with the bad guys. Oleana is acting really shady and makes you play hide and seek with this douchebag Eric and his dillweed of a Meowth. But the cool thing is that Team Yell, the annoying little shits that blocked your path here and there, actually helped you, because alongside Marnie and Piers, they actually helped track them down. But after finding them for the 17th time, you corner them, and Piers puts on a silent opera, Marnie steals a key, and you make your way to Rose Tower. After getting there via tram, you infiltrate the giant elevator, fight wave after wave after wave of Chads in tracksuits until you reach the top, where you find Oleana and fight her trash demon. You get to see a very mysterious PowerPoint about the future and shit. Would you be surprised to hear that Rose is the villain? Neither would I. So let's ignore this interaction for now and get to the finals. The finals is really cool, as it's structured like an actual tournament, where you get to fight against the gym leaders Young Opal, Nessa, and either beat or Alistair, and then the Inhaler Man. Bing bang bop, you win, and now it's time to fight the champion, Leon. But just as you were about to fight him, surprise! Rose fucks everything over, prompting you to drop everything and make your way to another town, fight Rose, and stop. Wait, shit, what's an Eternatus? Oh, that thing? Disgusting. That's disgusting. Let's beat it up. Good, it's dead. Fuck. This isn't Smash Bros. I don't want to fight fucking Master Hand in my Pokemon game. Battling this thing is literally impossible at the start. That is until Hop has the brilliant idea to summon the funny dog from the Slumbering Well from the start of the game. Hold up. I didn't really touch on the legendary story, did I? Alright, here's the SparkNotes version. The reason Sonia is a companion on this adventure alongside Hop is because she wants to figure out what happened on an event called the Darkest Day. So she takes you to the landmarks around Galar, like the Space Chicken Geoglyph, the Hammerlock Vault, which shows tapestries of apparently what happened during it, even examining broken ruins thanks to Bede. Fuck you, Bede, you made the story marginally more interesting. But suffice to say, the tapestries about the legends go as follows. There are two guys who watch a wishing star, then war breaks out, the Sword and Shield comes in to save the day, and they become kings. So after piecing everything together, you and Sonia eventually figure out that the Sword and Shield were inanimate object Pokemon, and they rest in the slumbering weld. So before confronting Rose, you literally have to make your way all the way back to Postwick to get into Slumbering Weld. So after discovering the Doggo's Shrine, you take your pick of which rusty weapon you want to break, and after stealing a monument, you make your way back to Rose's house, kill off his disgusting elephant, and confront Eternatus. So yeah, back to fighting Master Hand. Yeah, Hop actually has a brilliant idea in summoning the dogs by raising up their rusty knives and plates. And surprisingly, this actually works. The funny dogs zip on over to the top of the tower, activate their Super Saiyan transformation, and the battle can actually begin as a max rate battle. This is a really intense fight, with a tense atmosphere and a kick-ass 3-phase battle soundtrack. So long story short, Eternatus is forcibly captured with no room for negotiation, and then later, a single day passes, and you actually get to fight Leon. This is a tough as hell fight, and it took me 2 attempts on my shield game and only 1 on my sword playthrough, which is what you're seeing right now. The story is actually pretty bad with how slow it is at the beginning and how rushed it is at the end. Granted, there is a post game, but we'll get back to that. But what I think what ultimately makes or breaks your Pokemon game for me is the characters. So we've covered the story, we've covered the region as a whole, so now let's talk characters. Any game can have a really cool concept for a story, but it has to be delivered properly through the characters in order to make the experience more whole. And I believe that Pokemon Sword and Shield has a cast of the most memorable characters in a Pokemon game to date. I mean, in what other game can you find a little person in a mask that is genuinely creepy but is also kind of endearing? Okay, fair point. I mean, just looking at the gym leaders, they all look visually distinct, with Milo being a little buff baby that can dance like a man, Bee looking like she can rip out one of your ribs, and Raihan looking like that one guy that just won't get off of Instagram. Each one of the gym leaders have their own quirks and personality traits that make them stand out from other gym leaders. I mean, what can you really say about Ramos? I guess he has scissors? That's a personality trait. But for anyone who's played the games can tell you, just the gym leaders exude so much personality. But designing a personality trait doesn't make a character great, mind you, and that's where the actually developed characters come in. Meet Sonia, Leon, Marnie, Bede, and Hop. Actually, scratch out Marnie. She doesn't really do much, so she's kind of in that little limbo spot between the development between the gym leaders and the actually important characters. Kind of like Looker and Wally. I mean, she's considered a rival, but all she really does is show up, give some exposition, and skedaddles. Again, the most important thing that she does is pull some strings to get you into Batman's alley. But that aside, let's actually move on to the actually important characters for the second time. First, let's talk Leon. He is one dumb dude. I don't understand how he's the champion, yet so terrible with directions. I mean, I have an awful sense of direction, but that's why we have Google Maps. We don't really get to see Leon develop as a character. He more so is a pseudo guide to everything that is going on and acts sort of like a father figure to you and Hop. He holds the moniker of being the unbeatable champion and does everything in his power to shove that fact in your little stupid face. You only get to see him fight once, that being in an introduction cutscene where he doesn't really fight, he just makes his Charizard into Big Yoshi. So I don't really understand how his whole personality works other than it filling his ego. So does that mean his whole deal is that he's egotistical? I wouldn't say so actually. His character comes from the relationships he has with everybody, from Hop, Sonia, Magnolia, and even the Inhaler Man. He is a connector and will literally get along with everybody. And in the endgame, you get to see him do his work further, taking down a gross Dynamax Berserker after you beat Piers, and especially in the Rose Tower Ascension segment after the semifinals where you actually get to see that he has a responsibility to his fans, but also a commitment to Rose. And after you disregard what Rose's deal is, that's what makes him angry and release Master Hand onto the world. So because of him making the decision to defy his boss, you get to be the owner of a giant fucking hand and subsequently whoop his ass in the final battle, where in order to actually win, you gotta strip him of his dignity by completely bodying him in a money match. So I guess you could say that he doesn't have an established arc, but rather a series of events that take place in order to progress the story.
I think that's just called an arc, dumbass.
Hey look! Bait! This is Sonia, a history nut with a detective coat that makes her look like she is professionally over a fan that's blowing it up. That aside, alongside Hop, she's the only other one that actively travels with you, unlike Bede and Marnie, and together as a ragtag group of history nuts, you guys try and figure out what this mess of a Galarian history is about two dogs and their funny looking chew toys. Now that's a TV show I'd watch. Her arc is basically what happens in the story, but there are some things to know here that wasn't in that section. Well, after figuring out everything and explaining it to Magnolia, her grandma, she says, fuck it, you're the professor now! Hooray! And that's really her arc until the post-game, so expect that later down the line. Hey, who gave Grandma the nice purple coat? Oops, sorry, it's just Bede. This little shit is one hell of a character, as his whole appeal was that he was returned to form as a jerk rival, but yet he grows into a really competent person by the end of the game, and all of this should start at the beginning. You first formally meet Bede in the Galar Mines, where he exclaims that he is better than you in literally every way possible thanks to his endorsement from the chairman, and that you were only endorsed by the lowly champion. Yuck. He's a little shit all throughout the game, despite you beating him every time, spouting excuses like, I wasn't even trying that hard anyways, which I think he was just saying trying to tilt you. Which it worked. I don't particularly like Bede in the first half of the game, and then you actually get to the 4th gym on Soinside. This part is really important, as it ties together a character arc in the story, because Bede's whole MO is to find wishing stars for Chairman Rose under Oleander's request, but unbeknownst to Rose, he was actually destroying stuff that shouldn't have been tampered with, like this ugly mural on Soinside, which acted as its tourist attraction similar to Turffield's geoglyph. His reasoning was that there were wishing stars in the mural, you know, those plot armor meteorites that give you the power to make your Pokemon grow huge. He was mining those, and apparently for a monument-wide mining spree, he actually needed Rose's big gross elephant, but for this operation, he got caught, and actually got disqualified from the league challenge. Yeah, his big racket about him being endorsed by the chairman kinda blew up in his face, as he got doxxed by the guy who got them there in the first place. You'd think this would be the end of Bede, but no! He actually gets his second win by becoming the apprentice of Opal, the fairy-type gym leader, because, let's be honest, he just looks like a younger version of her. And then Bede is basically out of the picture until the Pokemon League. You might have noticed that I said young Opal back in the previous section, and surprise surprise, young Opal is actually Bede. And I love this twist, as it states on his league card saying, the general consensus is that Opal's harsh training has in fact mellowed him out. Hey, do you like league cards? Well, did you know that I actually have my own? Yeah, I have league card commissions open for both digital and physical. Everything is made with a high quality shiz, so if you want one, please let me know in the comments below. And, you know, my Discord and Twitter DMs are always open, so you could go DM me there, you could just ask for the commission. I like these. I want people to have them too. It's just buy my stuff. And that's Bede's arc. And lastly, for the important characters, meet Hop, your main rival. And yeah, he does kind of look like a Galarian Hau, but he's actually much more of a developed character than Hau could ever dream to be. And unlike every other Pokemon rival, he actually gets depressed. What the shit? Yeah, in the first part of the game, he was really pissing me off with how buddy-buddy he is. But after excessive pep talks and shiz, he actually gets roasted by Bede. But then again, if some asshole just says that I was dragging my family name down through the mud, I'd also be pretty fucking sad. So yeah, he literally abandons over half his team to make a newer, stronger team. Like he starts out the game with the Wooloo and the starter weakest of yours, then adds a Rookie D, evolves 2 of them, and completely drops everyone except for the starter. Then he goes back to the drawing board, adding a little bit of Toxel in his life, a giant Gramorantis by his side, an itty bitty Silicobra's what he needs, Trevenant replaces it apparently. Heat more than comes to the sun, Snorlax sleeps all through the fun, and then there's Bolton, what the shit, and then Pincurchin, this is it. Yeah. But after Sir Chester, he gets his shit together, making his best team yet, comprising of new and old, and making it all the way to the semi-final final match, which is really fucking amazing, as he's fully embraced being himself, and does his best to show his true power. Unfortunately for him, you gotta beat his ass in order for you to progress, so get punked, nerd! Dialing it back, his arc actually gets completed in the post-game, which will come later. So that covers all the important characters, but I still gotta talk about the evil team, Team Yell. There's an overwhelming consensus that Team Yell is the worst evil team in the whole franchise, and to that I agree. But that's because they aren't even an evil team. They're just a bunch of rabid fans for Marnie, and the fact that their MO was just to struck stuff and then have a change of heart about you when you defeat both Marnie and Piers, they warm up to you. And actually, when you think about how Team Yell is integral to Marnie's character, and how she's kind of just the scapegoat for Team Yell,
And does that mean she's a fully formed character because of her relationships with others, like you, Piers, Hop, etc., a la Leon? Nah.
So I could have tied this together in the story section, but there are a few things to know here specifically. For starters, I don't think that these are the best gym designs. I think that honor goes to Gen 5 with Berg's inventive honeycomb honey wall puzzle, as well as his spider silk chute design in the sequels, but also stuff like Elisa's roller coaster puzzle and Drayden's dragon scaling puzzle being one of my favorite gym puzzles of all time. In these games, they kind of just drop the ball halfway through. The first 3 gyms, super inventive. Milo's Wooloo wrangling puzzle is pretty neat and is the standout of this game. Nessa's water pump puzzle is quite honestly my favorite because I love these spatial awareness puzzles, which is why I like putting them in my stuff, such as Toxmon, like with the Gainey Zerani Town and the Yari Cape gyms for stuff who've seen that. But one of the more understated gyms of Sword and Shield has to be Kabu's gym in Motostoke, where the gimmick is that you've got to fight 3 different Pokemon and you either gotta catch it or kill it. Sounds easy enough, right? But the wrinkle is this is a 2v1, where there's one more person trying to do the same thing, so you either gotta outspeed the other trainer or commit sabotage like what they are going to be doing to you. I love this concept, but I don't really like it as much as these other bigger, grander gym puzzles. But after those, the designs and puzzles of each subsequent gym just declines in quality. Stow-on-Side's gym was fine? It's the first version exclusive gym, so I kinda understand why they got to keep the gym puzzles the same, but I gotta ask, why Tops? I don't really see any strong fighting type vibes from Tops, or neither any ghost type vibes from them as well. It's really all in the aesthetics, which I guess makes it a bit better, but overall, it's a pretty weak gym design in my book. Opal's was just straight doo-doo. I'm not one for the performing arts, as evident by my music number back there, but literally having a questionnaire about who someone's name is or what type of breakfast you eat is pretty bad. Hell, the town of Balanlea is literally one of the most beautiful in the game, with its enchanted forest grotto aesthetic that could have lent well to a magic mushroom inspired puzzle, or scaling up a giant tree or whatever. Fairy type is literally a magical typing, and yet it's used to have people be cast in a musical that never happens? That's pretty disappointing. Then there's the Sirchester gym, another version exclusive gym, Ice and Shield and Rock and Sword, and I think that this puzzle is a breath of fresh air from the mediocre ones that we've gotten from the last 3 gyms. This one you use a dowsing machine and some rumble features to navigate across a field, where if you take a wrong step, the floor will cave in and you'll be sent to the last checkpoint. And I believe that each typing's element really lends well to it, with their own particle effects that make sense. And then there's Spikebooth, which I've been referring to as Batman's Alley.
This whole town is a gym. It is just a hallway. I hate it.
The aesthetic is cool, but the gym is bum and all the trainers are a bummer. I love the twist that Team Yell is actually just the gym trainers, and it kinda caught me off guard, but after realizing that this really ruins the surprise for me, because especially if you look at the league cards prior to this, it really just kinda ruins it. And you know what? It could have been cool if I weren't so nosy. And then there's Raihan the Inhaler Man's gym puzzle. There is no puzzle. It's literally just 3 double battles in an area that you've already gone to. Then after that, Raihan follows suit with another double battle versus the giant inhaler. I mean, there's this huge tower with giant fucking spires, and there was no puzzle? What the hell? But that's just the gyms themselves. What else is there? Right, the gym leaders. Yeah, the gyms bookended themselves with a fight between you and the gym leaders, but these fights felt different from other gyms in other games, and I think that's because everything is set up differently. I don't know if any guys watch soccer at all, because God knows I don't, but every single part of the game is filmed and all the stadiums are packed. So the environment of being in a soccer stadium packed with fans, with Rotom cameras, and the music track that has the crowd chanting really amps up the intensity. Each gym leader's ace Dynamaxes on the first turn that they're out, all the way up to the 3rd gym, where they introduce a new concept called Gigantamaxing, basically a bigger Mega Evolution, which is what we're going to cover in the next section. And this really highlights the differences between the gym leaders and other important trainers. To other trainers, having the ability to Dynamax and Gigantamax because of these little bands are on risk are unheard of. And because the areas you are battling aren't over a power spot, you can't even have the option to do so. The only gym leader who doesn't Dynamax at all is Piers, because his gym wasn't even built on a Dynamax activation spot, also known as a power spot. But the League Challenge isn't all about the gyms. There is also the Pokemon League, which is set up into 4 parts. The first part is getting all the gym badges, the second part is the semifinals, which basically amounts to the best League Challengers facing off against each other in the tournament bracket. Luckily, there are only 4 trainers that made it to the semifinals, being you, Marnie, Hop, and some other nerd that got game ended by Hop. First you fight Marnie and her cheap as hell G-Max Grimmsnarl, and then your climactic fight with Hop, where he brings his best team to the league, complete with a Dynamaxing starter and a new battle themes to boot. In Marnie's case, it's particularly good. It is actually my favorite track in the game, right up there with Zinnia's Encounter theme, Black and White's Rival theme, and Diantha's Battle theme. After the semifinals comes the finals, where it's a round-robin tournament versus the gym leaders with new and improved teams. First up, it's Bede filling in for Opal, having a score to settle with you. After that comes Nessa, then either Bede or Alistair. Then lastly comes the Inhaler Man, Raihan, who has a revised team to accommodate for single battles. There isn't really much to say about this part as well, as it is very straightforward, but their new battle theme is even more epic than their original. Then lastly, it's the final bout with the champion. There's not really much to say about it on that front. But before I move on, there is one last thing I'd like to touch on. League cards. I briefly touched on this earlier, but the addition of league cards, and especially the variants that you get in the postgame, really breathes so much life into this world. And the fact that you can make your own in-game with so many customization options is freaking amazing! Hell, I love them so much that I started even making my own. And with the limited interaction that you have with some of these characters, like the gym leaders, you get to know more about their backstories and their personalities with these little text blurbs. I love this addition, and I love to see more in the future with stuff like Clara, Avery, and Mustard in the expansion pass. For anyone who's played Sword and Shield, it's pretty obvious what the big mechanic of this game is: Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing. But there are some smaller mechanics that are available in the game, such as extended customization objects so you can make yourself look like the way you want, from making a copy of yourself IRL, or even the craziest thing that you can afford, the Sword and Shield allows you to do both of them. There's also the Rotom phone, which basically acts as your UI and menu and Ycom and this and that. But the best thing is, it can hook up to a bike that you can get down the line, and you could even upgrade that bike so it can ride on water, opening up so many areas. The Ycom, as I just said previously, is an online hub that allows you to do the standard Pokemon stuff, like battle, trade, but also it has the functionality of you being able to link up with other trainers for co-op in max raid battles. One gripe that I have is that they took out the GTS, which was a great system in Sun and Moon, but it is coming back in Pokemon Home, so we'll see what happens there. Also, I mentioned this before, but you can also make your own 3-digit code that represents you as a competitor in the League Challenge. For me personally, my Shield playthrough had the numbers 307, which is also my birthday, and for Sword, which is the footage that you've been seeing all throughout the video, my number is 869, which is the numerical code for Tox. There's also max raid battles, but that brings us back to Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing. Dynamaxing is a signature mechanic of the game and is only accessible in certain parts of the game, specifically in gym stadiums, Rose Tower, and some max raid battle dens. But for those who are confused, what Dynamaxing is that it adds more health and transforms your Pokemon's moves into max moves. So Flamethrower would become Max Flare, and Water Gun would become Max Geyser, etc, etc. And each move would also have a secondary effect, like Max Geyser making it rain and Max Flare making it drought. But the caveat is that you'll only be able to use a Dynamaxed Pokemon for 3 turns, and then it goes back to normal. And this should go without saying, but you can only do this once per battle. Oh, also there's these things called Dynamax candies, which basically are rare candies for your Pokemon that are accessed in Dynamax form, where instead of going from levels 1 to 100, it goes from level 1 to 10, which each level allowing for more attack and health stat increases. So yeah, it's a good idea to level up your Pokemon if you plan to make them big. Gigantamaxing is the same deal, but the only difference is that the Pokemon change in appearance slightly and they get their own special G-Max move. But that G-Max move matches a type, so for instance Gigantamax Charizard's G-Max move is G-Max Wildfire, so every fire type move would be replaced with G-Max Wildfire instead of regular old Max Flare. And with that, those are all the new important mechanics. Sure, there's stuff like the Nursery, Berry Cheese, and Pokemon Oh my god, I forgot about Pokemon Camp! Pokemon Camp is the Pokemon on me/refresh of this generation, and quite honestly, I love it a lot more than the others, as you can interact with all of your party Pokemon instead of just one, and this secondary mode is surprisingly robust, allowing you to call your Pokemon, give them toys to play with to build affection, cook for them, etc.
But honestly, the best thing about Pokemon Camp that it allows for interaction between Pokemon, like having Pokemon race each other, have them talk to each other, and then subsequently attack each other, etc, etc. And the main thing to do in Pokemon Camp is to actually cook curry. And apparently they really wanted you to do it so much to the point where they made a goddamn curry dex. Yeah, there are over 150 unique curry recipes. The way it works is that you get a main ingredient like bread, noodles, or a fucking leek, and then you fill out the rest of it with berries that influence the taste, like adding orange berries makes it sweeter, and tomato berries making it spicier, etc, etc. Then after that, there are some quick time mini games, then ta-da! Curry time! And sure, there are some different ranks like bronze, silver, gold, etc., but they are all classified under Pokemon names, like gold being Charizard rank and silver being Caparaja rank, etc, etc. Also, the Pokemon eating curry is the dumbest thing that I've ever seen in my entire life, but I enjoy it at the very least. It's very cute. And that's all I really gotta say about camping. So let's move on to what happens after you beat Leon. Okay, so this section is hella short, because like other recent Pokemon games, there isn't really much I can say about it. But there are a few things I want to note, but for starters, here are some things that you can do that I don't really want to delve into. For starters, you can check into the Sir Chester Hotel and get your Pokedex evaluated and potentially get the catching charm, which increases the chance of a critical capture, which is a rare occurrence when trying to catch a Pokemon. The ball shakes only once and then it gets captured, as opposed to the 3 wiggles of a regular Pokeball. And also you could get the shiny charm, which increases the chances of finding a shiny Pokemon after you 100% it. There's also stuff like getting new League cards, getting the Master Ball from Magnolia, receiving a Charmander in Leon's house, finding Marnie back in Smikebooth and subsequently challenging her to a battle as the new leader of her town. Rewatch the end credits by talking to the band playing outside of Holbury, etc, etc. You can also re-challenge the Pokemon League again, this time not just fighting Nessa, Bee, and the Inhaler Man Raihan. You can also fight an assortment of gym leaders in any order with their elite teams, like Milo having a Flapple, Shifty, Cherim, and Blossom in addition to his Eldegoss. But after you beat the gym leaders, that's really it. Until you beat the Battle Tower. Remember Rose Tower? Now you can go inside of that again and access as a new battle tower, where you can participate in single and double battles until you raise the rank high enough to fight Fancy Leon. He basically is the same as in a champion fight, but it is pretty neat that he gives a sense of purpose in doing the battle tower in a narrative sense. There isn't really much to do in it except for battle and gain PP, but surprisingly you could also get a type null here, which is really odd for sure, but I'm not really qualified to talk about that. But the beefiest part about the postgame is the addendum to the story, as it is better than some of the previous generations, like the Ultra Beast Hut in Sun and Moon and the non-existence of one in Black and White. And the postgame has a nice start and a nice end, but an iffy middle. Let me explain what I'm talking about. It starts with a nice and simple task. All you gotta do is return the Sword and Shield back to the shrine in the Slumbering Well. Sounds simple enough, right?
It was, until, surprise, surprise, new villains in Sword and Shield Bird?
Oh no, they attempt to beat you up, but instead they beat up Hop and where he drops the relic and they snatch it. Well shit, they pull on Nelson and shout, ha ha, insult Sonia as a professor and a writer, and skedaddle. After this, Hop, already in a somewhat fragile mental state, gets utterly crushed. After a trip to Sonia's lab, where surprise surprise, her new lab assistant turns out to be evil, the main content of this postgame is going back to all the gyms except for Spikebooth, where it's split up into 2 sections. The first 3 gyms in Turffield, Horbury, and Motostoke is being attacked by Dynamax Pokemon in the stadium. The leader evacuates everybody, and then you go to a max raid battle between you, Hop, the gym leader, and Piers, who tags along for some reason. After the first 3 gyms, Sora and Gilbert, who I'm going to refer to as the dumb hair duo, show up at the Pokemon behind the counter and taunt you about how they've been doing this because celebrities. And then wave 2 starts with the other 4 gyms, but the main difference being is that you're on your own for these fights. But they aren't too much of a problem, as they are piss easy, at least for my well-rounded teams in both games. Nothing really to know here other than Balin where Beat insists that you battle him instead of fighting the big bad Pokemon. But after you beat all of them, you get summoned back to Hammerlock, where you corner the dumb hair duo in the power plant in the gym, where you fight the one that tried to beat you up prior with his supporters behind him, which honestly had me baffled because I legit said,
Wait, this guy actually has fans?
But that aside, you beat him and he reveals the plan that he takes the legendary dog and bombard it with a thing called Galar particles, which combined with the doggo's innate power makes it go berserk, and that makes you fight it. For Sword, you gotta fight Zamazenta, and Shield, you gotta fight Zacian. And after all that is said and done, Hop skedaddles into the Slumbering Well to calm down the roided up doggo, and the mascot sees that you are worthy of its power and it allows you the chance to capture it. Now that's how it's done. Afterwards, you find Hop at the Slumbering World again, where, to my surprise, the dog hasn't eaten him alive, and it has actually grown quite fond of him to the point where it also deems Hop worthy, where it actually gets into its non-existent ball. After the final fight with Hop, where it has his Pokemon League team alongside a giant Sword or Shield dog, it knocks some sense into him. After that, all his self-doubt and depression is over. He realizes who he wants to be and how he could do it, and now is setting out to be the next Pokemon professor, and now is working alongside Sonia as her new assistant.
And that really just concludes Hop's arc. He was literally going from a poopy garbage character to literally one of the most compelling in the entirety of the game. So that's really amazing in my opinion. They did an amazing job writing Hop, but that's just one character.
But that's not the most important thing you could do. You could also get Ball Guys League card. Yeah!
Alright, let's just get this done right off the bat. This is my opinion on every single Pokemon in the game. I know, I have bad taste.
But that aside, I believe that despite the lower Pokemon count, right now topping at 82 new Pokemon and 14 regional forms, these are some of the best designed Pokemon in recent memory.
And you really know when the Pokemon are really good this generation when a fucking apple is one of your favorites in this generation.
Like Alola, I firmly believe that each design solidly fits the region, like the British Red Squirrels represented by Greedence, Stonehenge with Stormjourner, James Bond with Inteleon, and the Knight ranking system with the Corviknight line. And there are so many more, but as I don't really have the time or patience to look at them all, I'm gonna go recommend Loxen's video on all the design origins of each new Galarian Pokemon. It's roughly the length of this video, but he really goes in depth with all the new Pokemon, and to that, I give him my kudos. That aside, this region has some of the best designed Pokemon to date, and some of the most diverse in terms of typing. Actually, scratch that. The Galarian Pokemon seem to have the most monotyped Pokemon in the region, despite having Pokemon that could easily add another type, like Phalanx with the Steel type, Eldegoss adding the Flying or Bug type, and Cufant and Cabaraja adding either the Rock or Ground type. There are some other notable Pokemon that I do want to touch on. For starters, the starters! Grookey, Scorbunny, and Sobble are by far the most personality-driven starters to date, and their traits only get magnified when they evolve. Sobble goes from a sad baby T-Pain to an emo teenager to a competent US-trained sniper with over 200 confirmed kills. Grookey goes from a baby music monkey to a punk rock sausage link to the last person who ever bought the DK bongos. Then Scorbunny is the stages of being an athlete, from a kid learning the game, to somebody who takes it more seriously, to Cristiano Ronaldo the furry. Next up are the legendary dogs, which in my opinion are really over-designed, especially Zamazenta. But I think that the biggest disappointment with the dogs is that the form is completely dependent on a held item, and the fact that the sword Pokemon is just a wolf that holds a sword, especially since the shield Pokemon has it actually integrated into the design. And in some cases, the unarmored forms are better than the armored forms, but the names of the new forms are pretty fucking rad, like the Hero of Many Battles and the Crowned Sword and Crowned Shield forms. And then there's Eternatus. That's just an Ultra Beast, and the Eternamax form is just Master Hand. But I can say that all the signature moves for all three of them are absolutely incredible. Good job, animators. You deserve a raise. But that aside, the new Pokemon are really fucking neat, but the ones that really take the cake are the new Galarian forms of regional evolutions. For those who don't know or just forgot, Galarian forms are alternate forms that reference the real-life occurrence of Darwinian evolution that first appears in the last generation with Alolan forms. This generation they really kicked it into high gear, with Pokemon from different regions also getting Galarian forms, like an Ice-type Darumaka, a Ground Ghost Yamask, and a Ghost-type Corsola, and even a Dark and Normal Zigzagoon. And in the case with some of these Galarian forms, they get access to new evolutions, like Corsola evolving into Cursula, which is now my new favorite ghost type, Obstagoon cosplaying as Gene Simmons, and this ugly bum of a Meowth turning into a Viking. Bitch, how? And unfortunately, there are some duds. And in the case of the fossils, these are utter abominations. Kill them all. They deserve to be put out of their misery, especially Dracovish with that base 573 Fishes Ren Jesus. Do not exist. Nuh-uh. We're done. Okay, the music is amazing. Enough said. Everything is so diverse in scope and genre, from the upbeat synth and electric guitar of the title screen, to the cheerful and optimistic tone of Hop's battle theme, to the bells and whistles of Motorstoke, to even the terrifyingly digital tones of Eternatus' second phase. But I think my favorite progression of music is actually coming from the Milquetoast character Marnie, where, like some other trainers, have 3 themes, an encounter theme, a battle theme, and then a second battle theme. And I could say for certain that hers is the best in my opinion. I know that most people would think that Hop's theme is better in terms of progression,
But let's just have her have this, could we?
Marnie's encounter is subdued, a little somber, but yet a little upbeat. I don't know, I'm not really a music guy, but that aside, the melody is what matters. Here, take a listen. Okay, now let's go to the battle theme. It starts with the iconic theme yell riff, then immediately goes into a remix of the melody, this time being more energetic with synths and guitars and even a chant from the Teen Yell Goons. Now that's a battle theme. And then comes the final battle theme from the Pokemon League. Now this is my favorite song in the game, so I'm gonna gush about it for a little bit. It takes the remix melody and then remixes it again, this time with a piano accompaniment, a larger chant from the people in the stadium, and a bigger emphasis on that guitar that really brings out that energy. I actually wanted to do something like this, so I contacted some of my music friends and here's what I came up with. Here is the Toxiquid encounter theme. Now here's the iconic battle theme. And now here's the big final battle where we grew alongside together and now we're at the climactic end of our saga. Now that's music to my ears. Obviously the games aren't perfect, and combined with the poopy PR team, all the faults were exponentially exasperated. The biggest offender of these before release were the culling of over 400 Pokemon and a single tree. Yeah, I know that it sucks that a tree looks like it was rendered on a potato, but all it really does is just break a little bit of immersion. But quite honestly, we are spoiled with nowadays with realistic graphics that put Mario, Sonic, and yes, even Pokemon to shame. The National Next thing caused a crisis of faith in many Twitter users, and whoo boy, that was the time. I actually discussed it in a previous video here, so I'm not really going to delve into it. But all of those things happened pre-release. What happened after it fully released? Well, stuff like draw distance being bum, frame rate dips, bad online, no national decks, all that shit. And while I agree with those criticisms and wish they could be improved, I think the biggest complaint from me is that right after the midway point, everything just became rushed. The story sped up and we didn't really get to explore the characters of Rose, Oleana, Leon, and even some of the gym leaders. Each distinct character has a semblance of a personality, a story, whatever. And a lot of stuff had a lot of potential, but they squandered it and didn't expand upon it, which disappointed me a tad. But with these critiques, that isn't to say that these aren't good games. Quite the contrary, actually, and we'll get to that in the last section, my final thoughts. This game was one that I thoroughly enjoyed, and looking back just made me love it even more. This, alongside Smash Ultimate and Luigi's Mansion 3, were my favorite games to play last year, but this one stuck in my mind not only because it just is another Pokemon game, or it just my heritage justice, but it's just a fun game with a really replayable post-game that really extends after the main story, the post-game story, just all this stuff. There's max rate battles, link battles, surprise trade, regular trading. It's really fun to play alone and with friends. The wild area is inventive and is really moving in the right direction that many Pokemon fans want in the game franchise to go in. And with the expansion pack doing that exclusively, it actually makes it even better. And with that promise being there, it makes everything a lot more exciting. Pokemon Sword and Shield had a rocky launch, but 4 months after everything is said and done, I can confidently say that I love this game. And from a scale of 1 to 10, I gave this game a solid 8. It has its highs and it has its lows, but all this, it just makes it a damn good game. And I can't wait to see what happens next. Hey Toxic Crew, thank you so much for watching this video and giving your continued support. And a huge thank you to all the people who made hitting 1,000 subscribers a reality. I know I'm a bit late and now we're over 1,500 subscribers, but wow, that's still a ton. So for that, I wanted to say thank you. For those who watched to the end, you'll be pleased to know what the next video is, and it is actually a follow-up on the previous one. The next video will be what if Rillaboom was in Smash, and the next one after that will be moveset mods for Mario. The framework for everything is already done, so all that needs to be done is to actually make the video. Special thanks to Siscolink and Jeans Valentino for this custom music that you listen to, and big thanks to Sky for reading the script. This script alone was over 20 pages long and took over 30 hours to complete the final draft of this script. They did an excellent job, so I'm going to drop their social medias down in the description below. Lastly, thank you so much to all the patrons, like Sky, Gookie, Quartz,
Zacian, Jonathan Wolf, Chaotic Meatball, and Plasma Admin.
Thank you so much for helping me make these videos. And if you want to help me out, go to my Patreon at patreon.com/Toxiquid and check out my tiers and rewards, like getting these snazzy portraits at the end of my videos, seeing videos early, downloading art assets, all that jazz. So if you only have $1 that you could give once or twice a month, that'd really help me out. Videos like these take a while to make, so everything helps. And if you really want to follow me on Twitter, go nuts, I have that. I basically devolved into shilling and shit posting with such treasures as Pocket Bagel, and Where the Rats. But if you want a more personal experience, my Discord is open, so jump on in if you want to hang out. And with that, I'm going to get started on the next video, so thank you so much for watching. My name is Toxiquid, and keep on crack-a-lackin'.